Good morning and welcome to our February meeting. It's still February and it's still cold, still windy. Okay, let's first take care of small business like our guests, the new members. So, are there any guests here?
You got a guest here.
Good. Okay, why don't you please rise, just give us your name, tell us where you're from and what you do.
Just stay there.
Just say that, that's fine.
What would you like me to do, young man? I was cruise director on the Mayflower.
I loaded the Mayflower.
What would you like me to say?
Your name, where you're
All
from?
right. My name is Roy Sills. I have been in South Jersey since I got out of the Navy in '59.
You're older than me.
Right now, my wife and I, we lived in Moorestown. Right now, we're living in Lionsgate. We've been there for 12 years. We're not in the main building. We have one of the cottages. The reason we're not in the main building is the average age in the main building is deceased. So we come and go as we please, and the layout is terrific, the location is sensational, and since we've been in South Jersey, we sort of know the area. The one thing my wife and I did is we traveled quite a bit. When I say quite a bit, I mean quite a bit. We've done about 150 countries, been around the world twice, and it's an exciting thing. And I got the gig because of my time in the Navy. I was part of the medical department there for 10 years. But most of the travel was on our own. But it was very nice having Holland America take care of me and pay me for when we traveled. And I had a lot of very interesting sea stories, but I bored the hell out of you. And I've talked too long already. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Somebody at this table? Anybody else? Okay.
Hi. Even though Marty doesn't recognize me, my name hasn't changed. I'm Gene Novak.
Oh my goodness. Hey.
This is official.
I used to work with this guy in RCA.
Way back in the old days. I live... Oh, all right. Is this better? I live in CN, Centennial Mill, right we're on Centennial Boulevard. Been there 9 years. Previously, about 30 years in Surrey Hill. Was a engineer for 25 years with Lockheed. And Lockheed Martin, and he got invited to this morning's meeting. So here I am. Looks like a really good group. Sounds like a really good group.
Hold on to the mic. Are there any other guests here?
Gene's got some old friends that want to say hello.
Oh, okay.
They're losing control of me.
Oh my God. What the hell?
They're losing control of me.
I think this is a get together.
Very welcome. Thank you all.
Okay, what I'm going to have, Gene doesn't know it, but I'm going to make him do a hamotzi. But once he does the hamotzi, what I would like is our guests and anybody who needs some assistance to go up to the 2 tables, 4 tables, whatever you like to call it. First, give them a chance, and then the rest of us can go and also go. There's plenty of food for everybody. Hamotzi. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, been circulating around 2 pictures that were in The Voice regarding our men's club. I don't want to show off that I'm in the picture, but at least we're getting recognition to the outside world. I have some name tags that for new members from the last few months. I don't have every one of them yet, but if I'm going to call a name, and if you're here, please raise your hand. I have 4 of them here. Barry Foreman, Bob Steiner, Bob. With the Coke fan hat. There you are.
We're matching blue.
Lee Yasker. Nope. Harvey Yorker. Nope. Okay. One thing I'd like to ask of the members of our club. We have a few members who are having some physical problems getting from the door downstairs up to here, which is a long walk. And it's an effort, and let's be honest, it's a long walk. We talked to Marcy LaHave about arranging to set up I'll call it a squad if you wish, to have the ability to assist those individuals to come up here where they would make a phone call to a volunteer here who would go downstairs and just escort them back up here with a wheelchair, and then obviously in a reverse direction do the same thing. So we need 1 or 2 volunteers. You know, it's not a big job to do, but if you're willing to do it, please raise your hand or see me after the meeting. Okay, thank you. That will allow members who can't make that meeting because it's just too much for them. Thank you again. Okay, Yom HaShoah. Rich?
Good morning. Just a reminder. The Yom HaShoah Holocaust observance this year will be on Wednesday, May 1st. It's going to be at Temple Emmanuel. So the program starts at 7 o'clock. We hand out the yellow yahrzeit candles. If you come and can help out, we'd like you to be there by about 5:30 so we can get the bed set up and the table set up. And Fred Berrend, is going to be the guest speaker that night. We've heard him before. He's a great speaker, and they expect a very big crowd. So just put it on your calendars. It's May 1st, Wednesday. Yes?
Will we need drivers again?
Yes, South Jersey Men's Club offers that because they canceled the buses, so it wasn't that many, but there are a few senior citizens that will need transportation. So I'll be sending out an email, and if you can do it, to pick them up and drive them back. We only had like a 2 or 3 last time, but it's a nice thing that the club does. Yes.
And what synagogue?
At Temple Emmanuel. Yes.
You mentioned about sponsoring candles.
Yes.
Send out an email this week.
Yeah. All the money that we collect for the candles pays for the candles. And we also make a large donation to the Goodwin Holocaust Education Center. And part of the monies that we take in is from the generosity of our members. If you're willing to pay for a case, I think it's $72 a case, half a case, quarter of a case, whatever you want. So we'll be sending bills out, and if you don't get a bill and if you want to donate, you can see me. And again, all the money goes to the Goodwin Holocaust Education Center. It's a good deal. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Okay, this Wednesday, we are going back to the pantry to essentially erect a bunch of shelves for them, good steel or whatever metal is it's made out of, replacing plastic type things that are falling apart. And we need 1 or 2 volunteers in addition to the 4 of us that are going. Essentially, it's put together a cabinet, or if you're not adept at putting things together like me, you can unload and load cans. And believe me, it takes a while to unload those cans and then put them back on. So no experience necessary. So again, anybody who can, raise your hand and let me know.
When?
Oh, I'm sorry, it's Wednesday at the pantry where Senator Beach. And it's like 9:30? 9:30. Okay, thank you.
Well, we definitely need one more person.
A minimum of one more is needed, yes. Any volunteers? Nope. Okay. Nelson, thank you. Okay, Ed Silver on, excuse me, on elections.
Thank you. The board has to come up with a slate of officers for the next year. I'm creating a nominating committee. We'll be meeting right after this meeting. We need a slate of officers. If anyone here would like to serve on the board and as an officer, please see me right after the meeting. As was mentioned earlier, we also need people just to do other things. So you could see any officer, or you could see Marty. If there's anything you'd like to do to contribute to the club, make coffee in the morning, help out with...
Just tell them we've had an increase in the pay scale.
We've actually doubled. Yeah. So anybody who's interested in serving as an officer and being put on the election slate, see me right after the meeting. Thank you.
Ed Stein will now talk. Ed Stein will now talk about Take the Wheel.
Good morning. I don't know how many members are familiar with a program called Take the Wheel. Started maybe 5-6 years ago. It started with some of us volunteering to drive veterans to doctor's appointments if they needed transportation. I don't know who's involved. There maybe, I know Dave Schwartz is involved, I'm involved. Is anybody else involved in the program that's here today? Nobody. So anyway, the JFCS, the Jewish Family Service, has a computer program that they're using where they send out weekly people who need rides for doctor's appointments. And some of them are veterans, and the program was expanded a few years ago to include the people at the living facilities such as Saltzman and the ones on Chapel Avenue. We really need some more volunteers. You can pretty much pick and choose when you want to work, where you want to pick someone up. The list comes out, and the list isn't that long, but it comes out every week, and you just sign up right on your computer that you will take someone for a ride to the doctor. The average time spent is usually somewhere between 3 and 4 hours. By the time you pick somebody up at Saltzman, take them to the doctor, depending on where the doctor is, wait for them. You can do something while you're waiting for them if you have an hour's worth of work to do or another stop to make, come back, pick them up, or wait for them in the doctor's office. But anyway, it's a good program. I know the people, everybody you take is very thankful. You get to meet some nice people. If you're interested, stop after the meeting and talk to me for a minute. I will give your name to Jewish Family Service. You use your own vehicle, obviously. There's no charge to the people that you're transporting, and again, they're very appreciative. So just let me know if you're interested. And you can do it once a month, you can do it once a week. I mean, people do it, 2 days a week. People do it once a month. If you go to Florida, you don't do it for a couple months, you come back and do it again. Thank you.
Thanks, Marty. The 2019 Law Enforcement Appreciation Program breakfast will be on Tuesday, April 16th. Last meeting we had a long explanation of everything, and the hundreds of law enforcement officials that will be here actually will be across the street at Temple Emmanuel. Now, it's everything from federal, state, local, municipal, and county law enforcement officials and prosecutors, state police, FBI, right on down to the guys, well, not the guys walking the streets, because what we have is we coordinate along with the police chief associations of Camden, Burlington, Gloucester, and Salem counties. And you're very safe on that day. We're the only ones there without guns. But we do need people to volunteer to help. And the help is primarily in 3 areas. To check in, we need 1 or 2. Also, people to help in the kitchen. Rich Moskowitz. Rich, raise your hand, please. Rich is back there. And how many people roughly do we need for that?
What, for the kitchen?
For the kitchen, yes.
As many as we get.
Gotcha. And
You gotta come there early, that's the thing. Usually we get there around 6 o'clock.
Okay. But a lot of work is needed, and but nobody gets worn out because there's so many volunteers. And the third group that we need are people to help set up. I mean, they do rudimentary putting tables out, but we have to change a lot. And the person you would see for that is Bob Greenberg. Bob, if you're interested in helping with that, Bob Greenberg. And at future meetings, actually it will be just next month. At next month meeting, what we'll do is to have sign-up sheets for people to sign up. But make plans if you can make a room on Tuesday, April 16th. You'll be back home by 11:30.
We'll also need about 4 people for the 50-50, because we'll be manning a 50-50 table. At this point, we're planning on putting it out in the lobby, but I don't want to stick people out in the lobby all morning, so 2 teams of 2, and it'll get done.
Don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, we're not a breakfast club. Everybody does something, right? And this is an easy type of thing you can help with. All right, moving on from there. I did do it. I'm going to speak now about the Science History Institute. Yes. If you recall, last month we had a little tiny presentation about the Science History Institute in Philadelphia, and it's down the street, about 1 block from the American Philosophical Society, which is about 1 block from Independence Hall, and about a 1/4 block from the Revolutionary War Museum. And we gave examples. They have programs, and a 2-floor museum. They have programs, maybe about 50 a year. I asked how many people would be interested in a men's club trip there, and we had a lot of hands go up. We did a little follow-up. We can have the program on a Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, and, depending on how many people, also on a Saturday. So just in general, and some people, like when we did the Jewish Museum, people brought their wives. How many would be interested in going to one of these programs, the Science History Institute, during the week, on a Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday? Put your hands up, please. Looks like between 12 and 15. Okay, how about on a weekend, on a Saturday? About the same. Okay. How many of the people who raise their hand for either one think that your wife may come also? Just trying to get an idea of numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, about 10. Okay, I think it may work out that we'd be able to get 2 groups on 2 different times. Any questions? Thank you. Oh, there are brochures, many of them. We got about 50 brochures when we were last there. And it's just for some of the programs that come up now. And you'll notice on the brochures that it also will mention some of the regular programs. They have a Saturday program. They have something around the corner at National Mechanics, which is one of those bar restaurants that looks like an old bank. And that's once a month. And you'll get Nobel laureates. You'll get doctoral candidates, researchers. Very interesting. Thank you.
Why don't you just mention about the chocolate one that you went to?
Oh, at the American Philosophical Society, which is hundreds of years old, its founder was Ben Franklin, presidents were Tom Jefferson, Adams, those types. But they're still functioning. They have 3, 4 buildings with a library. And as I said, they have presentations actually of a higher level than Science History Institute. But the last one I attended was the science of chocolate. It was very, very interesting. How can it be science of chocolate? But it had to do with quite a few other things. Who brought chocolate to this country? And on and on and on. It was excellent. So perhaps we can also arrange something for the American Philosophical Society. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Did that come over on the Mayflower? Chocolate? Bad joke, never mind.
That's not the name she gave.
Okay, last line before we introduce our guest speaker, Dave.
Good morning. Ed Silver brought to my attention. Let me get it here. Next week, We're going to put this out in a blast to the membership. It's sorry for the short notice, but again, Ed Silver was nice enough to let us know. Next week, March 2nd, Saturday night, at Emmanuel Synagogue, Elbow Lane in Mount Laurel, has a comedy club with food, of course. They're going to have appetizers and they call it light refreshments. Appetizers and then a dessert. You can take your own wine. It starts at 7:30. Doors open at 7 through 9 o'clock. It's $20 a person if you pay in advance. So we're going to have to work something out to get the money to these people. They'll reserve the tickets, $20 a person, or $25 at the door. So we'll have a blast out tomorrow to you, and we'll try to coordinate an effort to go as a group if you'd like to. Anyone here think they're interested in going next week, next Saturday night? Yes? No? Okay, we'll get a couple people. Thank you very much. Marty, can I go right to the speaker? Gary Kaschak was born and raised in Binghamton, New York. Our speaker is here with a couple family members, or future family members. Was raised in Binghamton, New York, Yankee country. Along with his two brothers, they were taught the art of baseball from their great coach and father, John, who taught them also about the New York Yankees and especially Mickey Mantle. As a boy, Gary dreamed of playing big league baseball for his Yankees and of being Mickey Mantle, not replacing Mantle or pretending to be him, but being him, being Mickey Mantle. Gary earned a degree in radio and TV journalism. He went on to write for several newspapers. He has written 5 books: The Hoover Years, The Life of legendary high school football coach Dick Hoover, 2 teenage winter stories, Hands That Break, Hands That Heal, and The Hole to China, as well as Murder Mystery Lifestone. And of course, my name was Mickey Mantle. In 2016, Gary was invited by the Cooperstown Crier to attend an interview at the Hall of Fame for fellow writer Nancy Chernin. In 2012, Gary helped form a committee whose sole purpose was getting William "Dummy" Hoy, the most successful deaf baseball player in history, inducted into the Hall of Fame. Currently, Gary is working closely with the Jackie Robinson Foundation to further enhance the story of Hoy that he is writing, the Dummy Hoy story. As for My Name Was Mickey Mantle, his back cover reads, in part, for boys and girls growing up playing baseball in the 50s and 60s, one player stood out above all the others, Mickey Mantle. My Name Was Mickey Mantle takes the reader on an engaging, sometimes unbelievable journey from the sandlots of Binghamton and ending on the hallowed grounds of the Baseball Hall of Fame and Museum in Cooperstown. Let us welcome Gary Kaschak. By the way, his book is for sale at the end of the meeting, and they're $16. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you, David, for that nice introduction and for inviting me to this meeting. And thank you guys, Al and Joe, my future son-in-laws, and one of their fathers for being here as well. I got to tell you, it's pretty impressive what you guys are doing and listening to all these speakers and all the volunteer work that you're doing. It's very impressive from our end, not knowing really what this group was all about. So I applaud you guys for that. Absolutely fantastic. Many of you spoke to me before the breakfast, and we were talking baseball and the Yankees. So did we have a lot of baseball playing people here when they were kids, 40s, 50s, and 60s? Most people here? Any Mickey Mantle fans out here? Old Brooklyn Dodger fans, perhaps? I know a lot of those from the Jackie Robinson Society, yes. And not too many New York Giants fans, I have come to learn over the years. I'm not really sure why that is, but anyways. So we remember back in the 50s and 60s that we pretty much played baseball all day. During the summer months, you'd find a ballpark or a street if you lived in the city and you played stickball or baseball. And you played until it was time to go home for dinner, and that was pretty much the cycle of the summer. We learned to play baseball. We were good at it. And one of the things that we did when we were kids, and I'm sure that you did too, was you chose who you were for that game or for that season, whatever it was. And where I lived in Binghamton, New York, it was New York Yankee territory. The Mets had just started up and didn't have a lot of backing from Binghamton, so Mickey Mantle was the person that most of us chose to be during those games. I had a couple people that were friends of mine that one was a second baseman. Who was the second baseman for the Yankees? Anybody remember that? Bobby Richardson, yep. My brother was the tall right-hander Ralph Terry. Anybody remember Ralph? I've been speaking to him recently. He wrote a book. He's in his mid-80s and he's doing well, so Ralph is doing good. But most people were Mickey Mantle, and that bothered me. Even as a 9-year-old boy, I knew that I was Mickey Mantle. There was nobody that was as good as me at hitting, fielding, running, throwing, anything to do with baseball.
Were you a switch hitter?
I was not. I tried. Oh, I know Mickey was a switch hitter.
You can't be Mickey then.
Well, that's a good point. Let's say I tried, but I quickly went back to batting right-handed. Oh, but I ran like him. I had the little hitch and the hop and all that. But, in my... Yes? Yes, at 9 years old, I had a lot of lemonade. Yes, that's good. So this didn't set well with me, and in my mind, I was 9 years old. I was on the farm league a year before the Little League, and I imagined that I had hit 1,000 home runs and never struck out and probably hardly ever made an out. But those memories of that time didn't really start coming back to me until about 2015, when I started this seeking out information on this baseball player that Mr. Schwartz indicated earlier. Anybody 19th century baseball fans here? Well, Dummy Hoy was a baseball player in the 1900s. He was deaf, played 14 years, and I got very immersed in this project of researching his life, trying to get him into the Hall of Fame. And I believe that research triggered something in me, because after 3 years of doing this research, one night I had a dream. Now, this is where the spirituality of this story takes over here. Very unusual, very different Mantle story. Many of you know that there's tons of these Mantle stories. This was different for the following reasons. So, the spirituality. I had a dream of me playing baseball as a 9-year-old boy. And I woke up the next morning and the dream was incredibly vivid. I could see where I was playing, the people I was playing with, what happened in the game. I could smell the grass and see the vividness of everything. Every detail was a dream unlike any other I'd ever had before. I didn't tell my wife, I didn't tell anybody, but I went to bed the next night hoping I'd have another one. And I did, and it followed the sequence of what happened the night before, like the next game, 9 years old, and these continued for a couple of weeks. And during that time, when I would go to bed, I was praying, please bring it back to me. I want to get back into that self. I was actually watching myself from my 60-year-old self as a 9-year-old boy. It was unbelievable. A little crazy, actually, sounding, but it happened nonetheless. So I started writing down what was happening to me, and before you know it, I thought, man, maybe I could write a book on this. And so I started writing a book. Now, the dreams ended suddenly. As I was getting older in the dreams, going from 9, 10, 11, and 12, they started to dissipate. And I believe that is because as I was getting to be 11 and 12 years old, I was beginning to understand a little bit more how the world works, and I was losing that naivety of youth. Just my guess, I don't know, I'm not a dream expert or anything like that. But the dreams just ended. So I wrote a book in 9 months' time. And that's pretty good pace when you're still working full-time and have other things to do. But for some reason, I was not fully happy with the ending, even though it would have been a really good ending to a book. So, you know, and anybody else here is a writer, you can't force yourself to write something if you don't have it in you. And this wasn't a book of fiction, this was a book of my memories, at least the way they were coming back to me. So I couldn't force myself to write something that was just trying to figure out what happened, why I wasn't going anywhere with this. So I put the manuscript away for 15 months, and nothing came to me. I didn't try to find a publisher, just let it sit there. And then here's where my spiritual day happened. I was invited to Cooperstown to cover a story at the Hall of Fame, which was mentioned earlier. And I had a few days to spend there by myself. The day of the interview, I was to be covering at the Hall of Fame. I had a lot of free time to myself. About 7 o'clock in the morning, I walked Main Street of Cooperstown. Anybody here been to Cooperstown? All right, so you know, you're very familiar. Quiet, peaceful, beautiful, nobody around. And I was alone pretty much, a beautiful day. And there was a sign for Doubleday Field, and I walked over to Doubleday Field, and the parking lot was empty, the stadium was there. I took some pictures. I walked towards the stadium and found, to my surprise, that it was open. You could actually walk into the stadium. You know, not even locked. Incredible that small towns out there still are sometimes. So I walked up the ramp and studied the photos and inscriptions that were there, and which is what I do. I like the history of baseball. And then I walked up into the grandstand area, and at that very moment, when I looked out to this beautiful field where there was no one there, I just completely lost it emotionally. And I didn't know why until that very moment. And what it was, in 1965, when I was 9, and I had suppressed this memory for some reason, it only had come back at that moment. The Yankees were playing the Phillies in the annual game at Cooperstown for the Hall of Fame ceremonies. This is what they used to do. I'm sure many of you remember that. The National League team would play an American League team, and for the induction ceremonies. And the Phillies and the Yankees were going to be coming together on that day. And we lived 90 minutes from Cooperstown. And I badgered my father, Dad, can we go to the game? Can we go to the game? I want to see Mickey Mantle. And we didn't go to the game. And I can't blame my father. Probably tickets were really hard to get, and he worked 2 jobs, and you know, it wasn't in the cards. But as I sat there, drunk with emotion, looking out to that field and remembering this is what happened, I was that 9-year-old boy again, just being told by his father that can't go to that game. So I was terribly, terribly broken up by that. Well, I stayed at the stadium for a while. I walked up the great bleachers there and sat between home and first base on the top, and I just was looking out onto the field, and I started to put my Yankees in place from position to position. And I can't say that I physically saw them as ghosts, so that's a little bit crazy, but I pictured them that vividly in my mind because I was 9 years old again, and I had a great imagination as a 9-year-old. And I could see them: Boyer, Kubek, Richardson, Pepitone, Maris, Mantle, all of them. And as I looked into center field, pretending that Mickey Mantle was out there, I felt as if he was tipping his cap to me.
And I was trying to control this emotion, not getting too carried away with it, because I've never had anything happen like that to me before. And then I started texting my wife and daughters of what I was experiencing, taking them through the whole emotional roller coaster that I was in. So after a while, I was talking to them as if they were there, and I decided I'm going to try to go onto the field. Now I want to walk where Mickey Mantle walked. He had to have played in that game in 1965. The closest I had ever been to Mickey Mantle before was on the mezzanine level of Yankee Stadium. Never any closer, never met him later in life, nothing. So I went over to first base, and the field was locked at that point. I could have jumped the fence, I suppose, but you know, it's the last thing a 60-year-old needs, is to be arrested in Cooperstown for trespassing on a baseball field. So I went back into the stands and decided it was time to leave, go back and do something else. And as I was about to leave, cars started streaming into the stadium, and boys in baseball uniforms, 13, 14-year-old boys, were getting out. And I thought, man, maybe they're having a game. And I approached a couple of the coaches and I asked them, and they said, yeah, there's a game. It's a travel team from the Angel Bombers and some other team from New York State. So they started to warm up, and I asked the same coach, I said, look, here's what's happened to me here so far today. It's really important for me to get onto that field to see, to walk where Mickey Mantle walked. It really was that important to me. And they were so receptive. They walked out to center field with me. They let me walk the warning track. A couple of the coaches talked to me about their memories of baseball. Because baseball, it's easy to do. Like the 10 or 12 guys who met me earlier today, we just talked baseball and you had something in common right away. So he took photos of me, and you know, I looked and pretended that I was walking where Mickey Mantle stood where he was, and I watched a couple of innings of the game, and then it was time for me to go into town and actually do some work. So the interview went well with the book, and ended. And I stayed around for the book signing for a little while. And during this time, I'm thinking to myself, all right, maybe my emotions got away with me. I've got to prove that Mickey Mantle was actually at that game. Because, you know, a lot of the star players back then didn't travel to those games, or Mickey Mantle was hurt a lot at the end of his career. Maybe he didn't even play. So I went to the library there at the Hall of Fame, and I asked the librarian if she could print out the game day summary and the box score from that game. And she found it quickly, and I read the recap, and the Yankees won 7-4, but Mickey's name wasn't mentioned, not even once. So I thought, man, Yankees scored 7 runs. Mickey had to have had something to do with that scoring, yet his name wasn't in there. And as hard as she tried, she couldn't find the box score. No box score, no Mantle, nothing. So I'm thinking at this point, he wasn't there. My emotions have gotten the best of me. It's over. Well, I decided after that I've got to do an internet search to try to find this scorecard somehow. And I was able to find it. There was a scorecard for sale. And I remember closing one eye and clicking and hoping that I was going to see Mickey Mantle's name. And there it was. He was in the game. He was 1 for 4. Played left field, had a double. So I felt pretty good that everything I felt that day was pretty real, very real. So it was pretty much time for me to go back home, and I said, I've got to go home, and I've got to take some kind of a souvenir with me. And wasn't sure what I was going to get at that point, a baseball card, a Mantle jersey, something to remember it by. So I started to go into one of the sports little places there. Yes, Sports. If anybody's been to Cooperstown, they'll know that. Just as I was walking into Yes Sports, there was a dollar bill laying on the ground. And I just looked around to see if anybody had looked like they lost some money, and people were just going about their business. So I picked up the dollar, and I went inside. And I found the Mantle cards right away. I decided in that moment, I'm going to buy a Mickey Mantle card. And these were not the authentic Mantle cards. They're the imitation cards. And as I was considering what to do, I thought it was appropriate that I buy an imitation card, because that's what I was. I wasn't him. I'm not Mickey Mantle. I never was Mickey Mantle. I was an imitation of Mickey Mantle. So I found the 1968 card, his last season, went up to purchase the card, and he said to me it was $1. And I said, $1? He said, yeah, $1, no tax. So I pulled out that dollar bill that I found outside earlier, and because I've led my life in believing that life leaves you signs all the time, and that you just have to learn how to read them, I truly believe it was Mickey somehow planted that dollar bill for me to see that everybody else was walking by, and I bought that card with that dollar. So that's my story of my spiritual day in Cooperstown. That's what happened to me. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Now, I've got a few readings I want to give you from my book. Shorter ones. As I said earlier, I was Mickey Mantle in my mind, but I was also others. I was the supreme commander of the entire forces of good when we played Army and Guns or whatever it was, and I was always the leader of the neighborhood, and so I was always somebody, but I was always Mickey Mantle especially. But then something happened in 1966. The Batman TV show came out. Anybody remember that? Bruce Wayne and all those guys. So I was in a real quandary because the first episode, I'm sorry, not the first episode. The first episode was 1966. The last episode of the first season was going to be on the same day of Little League tryouts. And we didn't tape any TV shows back then. You remember that. You saw it, and that was it. If you missed it, you missed it. So I had to make a decision whether to try out for the baseball team or watch the Mickey Mantle, or watch the Batman show. So my father was one of the coaches, and this has a lot to do with credibility, a lot of the stories here. So I'm going to read this passage here. I just walked up to my father, and I told him I was not feeling well. I had to go home. I wanted to watch Batman. And he said to me, do you know what that means? You may not be making a team if you don't try out. But remember, in my mind, I'd already thought it was Mickey Mantle. That how would the coaches not choose me? I'd get a pass for this. I know, I said, Dad, but I don't feel good. He paused and looked me in the eye. He started for a while and then said, go home and tell your mother. So he turned away and began observing the other boys and taking notes. I stood there for a few seconds contemplating what had just happened. I thought of Batman and began walking the short distance from the park to home, listening to the boys, the sweet sound of the ball, the clapping and cheering from the sidelines. I stopped in my tracks and turned towards the fields, torn between Mickey and Batman. But Batman pulled harder. He called me with a stronger voice, and I decided to stick to my original decision. I'd abandoned Mickey Mantle in baseball just this once, certain that Mickey would understand and even would look the other way, and our relationship would remain intact. So I watched Batman that night, but it didn't feel good. I was distracted during the episode and commercials, thinking of playing Little League baseball, of wearing a real uniform and playing on a real baseball diamond. I thought of my duty to the game and to Mickey, and felt terribly ashamed. I'd let down the baseball world and Mickey, but I'd also let down my father. I was no hero. I was a deserter, and even worse, a liar. That night I went to sleep and felt as vulnerable as Superman had against kryptonite. I thought about the utter unfairness of the day with no perfect choice to make. I felt dirty and out of place, a coward and a weakling. I apologized to Mickey, crying like a baby, and I promised I'd make it up to him on the field of play. I would show the world what I was made of, and that this one slip-up would never happen again. I prayed to sweet Jesus that I'd make the Little League, sorry. And that any baseball seed I'd planted was enough. But as Friday came and went, there was no phone call. I asked my dad about it, and he said that I didn't make the team, that my absence was the difference. And life as I knew it ended just then. Another year in the farm league was not an option I considered. I'd spent 2 years awaiting the opportunity and blew it with no second chance in sight. I thought everyone knew enough about my exploits on the diamond, and I would be immune to such things. I gambled and lost, overestimating my baseball talent. For the first time in my life, the magic switch I had held wasn't working. I'd failed and wish I could take it all back. So that was misery for a boy of 10 that who thought he was the best player that the world had ever seen to not make it. And the decision I made was something I could never take back, and I've carried with me for all these years. Fast forward here a little bit later. So now I'm 12 years old, and I just played my last Little League game. I was an all-star every year. But the irony was that I hadn't even hit one homer. I had not one. My first at-bat as a 10-year-old plunked off the top of the fence in left field, missing a home run by inches, but my entire Little League career was not hitting home runs at all. Never hit one in any league, as a matter of fact. So after my last at-bat, I remember thinking that I wasn't Mickey Mantle and was beginning to understand that I never would be. I didn't hit a homer in that championship game, and we didn't win the game either. I ended my Little League season and career with no home runs. And how ironic that the closest I'd ever gotten to hitting one was in my first at-bat as a 10-year-old. So now, after the years of pretending I was Mickey Mantle and then all this being Mickey Mantle, I realized that I wasn't him. And on to 13-year-olds hoping that I'd hit a home run there. I just have 2 more of these, and then we'll be done here with this. Let's see what we have here. The next year, I made the 13-year-old All-Star team. Now, I had still never seen Mickey Mantle live in a game, and never had the opportunity. My older brother had gone with a friend to Yankee Stadium, and I was devastated thinking I should go with him, but I wasn't invited. And my father won a bus trip for 2 to Yankee Stadium. And seeing that my older brother had already gone and my younger brother was 5 years younger and didn't care as much as I did, I was chosen to go with my father. So we started counting down the days when we found this out. And this was in 1968. And a couple of things happened. In March of ’68, Mickey announced his retirement. So this is the year I'm going to go see him, and now he's not even going to play. It's just unbelievable. This great effort, which you'll see if you buy the book, of just trying to meet and see Mickey Mantle is just never seemed to work out for me. Well, my father then said, look, he's going to be probably playing in the Old Timers game. And that's the same day that we were scheduled to go. So maybe you can see him play an inning or so. So I said, okay, that's better than nothing. Well, as it turned out, the 13-year-old All-Star team I was on was winning our games. And we kept winning, and I just looked at the schedule and I said, oh my God, if we win this next game, we have to play on the same day. I'm supposed to go to Yankee Stadium to see Mickey Mantle or the Yankees. And I said to my father, I said, Dad, what are we going to do? He said, you're going to play. You can't lay down your team. Yeah, we'll go to Yankee Stadiums one day, but you have a commitment. And this is how my father's attitude was towards everything. Good love, good tough love, and we're going to go to the game. So I decided that since I was one of the star players that I was going to try to do something possibly in that game where we would lose. Perhaps I would have some big play in the field or strike out with people on base or make an error deliberately. This is what went through my mind. Awful, isn't it? So that's how badly I wanted to go to this thing. And it was a close game. And I was put into right field late in the game, tight game, and I think I had a double earlier that knocked in a run, and I was even emotional about that, like, what are you doing? This isn't helping your cause to go to Yankee Stadium. So I was in a situation playing right field where their batter hit one in the gap between center and right. And as I'm running towards this ball, I'm thinking, okay, here's my opportunity to let it fall in. Nobody's going to know that they did it deliberately. I'll read this part here. The next swing left his bat in a hurry and headed for the gap between right and center. I raced with all my might for the ball, tracking it as if it took off like a rocket. I remember racing as hard as I could, my glove outstretched as the ball began its descent. And as I gave chase and thought this was the absolute perfect time to let the ball fall in, another random thought came to me out of the blue, and it was the Little League Creed. Now, anybody remember the Little League Creed? I will play fair and strive to win, but win or lose, I always do my best. Play ball, that's what I remember. That's what we used to recite on the foul lines between every game. And that came to me, and it meant something to me. So, like a warning or a reminder, I was hearing words recited before every Little League game. The creed meant something to me, reciting each word precisely and with conviction. Bad thoughts circled back, playing tricks with my mind. The result from the upcoming play could go either way, that was for sure. Not a soul would ever know the truth if I simply let the ball fall beyond my outstretched glove. I wouldn't be blamed for trying to make a great play that didn't work out. They tell me it was a good try, that I gave it my best shot, and that I did all I could. They tell me I had a good jump on the ball, that it was a clean double, and not to be so hard on myself. And as those thoughts crossed my mind, I picked up the pace, kept my eye on the ball, and then reached out my glove as far as I could. Who's going to guess as to what happened next? What's that? Half the ball was sticking out of my webbing of my glove, but I made the catch. You're right. Very good. Yeah. So I can tell you that if I had let that ball fall in, I don't think I'd be the same person I am today. I would have been guilt-ridden of that decision for my teammates and myself. And it's, you learn a lot as you go. But I'm so glad that it worked out that way. I made the catch. And we lost the game. So I had nothing to do with the loss. And so onward we go to Yankee Stadium. And I'll have one more reading here. And thank you for indulging me. I hope this isn't too much information here for you guys. So here we go to Yankee Stadium, bus ride through the Bronx, never been there before, making good time. And we suddenly get caught up in the New York traffic. And guys, anybody who lived in New York knows it's awful. You get to near the Bronx, it's just this big, awful mess. And it was, wait a second here. It was a awful feeling as I'm starting to watch the time and seeing that, the Old Timers Day game is a little bit of time before the real game, and I wanted to see everything, the batting practice, the Old Timers warming up, all of it. Get a good glimpse of Mickey Mantle. But fast forward this, the bus finally pulled into the Yankee Stadium parking lot, and it was really getting late. And this is what happened. As we rushed out of the bus driver caught my eye and winked at me and said nothing more. Then I heard the familiar voice of Bob Shepard cut through the Yankee Stadium air announcing, now batting number 7, Mickey Mantle. We all remember Bob Shepard, I'm sure. So we handed our tickets to the usher and rushed for our seats on the mezzanine level. We ran as fast as we could, dodging hundreds of fans, just as our bus driver had done with the New York traffic. He did his best. I could hear the crowd roar as Mickey took his place in the box, but obstacles were aplenty. Finally reaching the mezzanine, I looked out onto this magnificent field of green, which I couldn't believe. I could smell the grass, the hot dogs, cotton candy, and the peanuts. And it was then that I realized that Mickey wasn't batting, and another old Yankee was. I missed him by a few seconds. Yep, and I asked my father if there was a chance he'd bat again, but it was just a 2-inning game. They only batted once. Understanding my disappointment was impossible to fathom. Even receiving a free vinyl record of Mickey's retirement ceremony didn't take the pain away. They gave away that A Day to Remember record of Mickey's retirement that day, when Bob Messer and Bill White, I think, were the announcing, and we still have that record. As much as I played that record until nearly wearing out its grooves, all that happened and the way it happened was beyond unfair. Everything leading up to this moment had been stolen from me. I even waited for Mickey to come out of the dugout after the game, but he didn't. Even a glimpse of him would have been something. Even as the dugout emptied out and a few old-timers came onto the field, I didn't see Mickey. There was a part of me that never wanted to grow up at that point. There was a part of me that wanted to keep things just as they were. I wanted Mickey Mantle to play baseball forever, but I knew it was over and he wasn't coming back. And the bus ride home was long and tiring. Yankee Stadium was beautiful, no question about it. But the void in my life and the empty pit in my stomach was what I felt most. I miss seeing Mickey Mantle. Now that's not the ending to the book. There's a better ending than that. So that's what I have, guys. Thank you very much. Any questions at all? Yes, sir.
Did you know the relationship between Mantle and Maris?
Oh, yes. Yeah, they were friendly to each other, but Maris wasn't an outgoing guy at all. He didn't have the party attitude that Mantle had.
Okay, and one more thing. Mantle's favorite inning was the bottom of the fifth.
I know. Go ahead. Yes.
So, when did you play through your early teen years, and when did you stop playing baseball and why?
I stopped after high school, but then I started playing men's softball, fast pitch and slow pitch. At one point, I was playing 6 nights a week, and so I stopped playing because I didn't play in college. I wasn't just ended. You know, high school. At the end of high school, that's pretty much it for a lot of us. If you're not playing college ball, you're not playing.
Are you good at fast and softball?
Well, I was good.
Maybe we can recruit you.
Well, I actually had started back into softball again, but fast pitch is another animal. That was hard even when I was 25. Very tough. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. Anybody else got anything?
I have a question.
Yes.
What was the interaction between Mickey and Joe DiMaggio?
Oh, well, Joe was a little jealous of Mickey when because he was coming in just as he was going out.
Okay.
So that's what I know about that relationship. You know, they overlapped careers, I think, for 1 year. So at least they got to play with each other. But Joe was on his way out, and that's what I remember about that. Yeah. No, I have, yes.
From the story you've related to us so far, it sounds like the title of your book should have been Field of Dreams, Book 2.
Yeah, well, when that movie's on, which it seems to be all the time at night, I have to sit and watch that, or The Natural, or something, one of those two movies. So thank you for that. Yeah. Now, recently I was Danny Mantle, one of Mickey's sons. I've been trying to get a hold of Danny and David for a year, because this book has been out 1 year now, and through more serendipity, another friend of mine who wrote a book happened to live near Danny Mantle, and he stopped over there at his house just last week, and he answered the door, which no one even does anymore, and he invited him in, and they had an hour conversation. He got a copy of my book, so I'm now going to have some kind of contact, I think, with Mickey through his sons, which I've been wanting to do for the longest time. So there'll be more on that as time goes by. Yep. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Stick around.
Okay.
2 more things. One. Yeah, you can't let you out. We have to get you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, excuse me.
We'd like to present you this guest speaker's certificate of appreciation, and we will smile.
Thank you.
Okay, and your last thing before you can leave is pick my number out of that bag.
Oh, is this a raffle?
So the 50/50 is $57. 57. Here we go.
I hope I picked number 7.
Let's see.
That would be ironic, wouldn't it? It does have a 7.
Last 3 numbers.
The last 3 numbers are 581.
Look at this.
581.
581. Who has it?
Steve Barson.
Barsky again. Now, all it, we have another picking. And the winner will be receiving Super Bowl 52 champion DVD.
Nice.
Looks pretty close. One more. One more? Thank you, Ed Silver, for donating.
Busy work, $57.
Last three digits are 816. Mr. Perloff. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. So feel free to come back every last Sunday of the month.
Okay.
We're always up here. Thank you. All right. Thank you, gentlemen. You'll be looking forward to emails. Anybody who's volunteered or wants to volunteer for items that we mentioned, please see the appropriate people. Thank you and have a good month.